Okay, guys, welcome again to the Crappie Hole. I hope everybody's having a good day. I hope that everybody has seen a couple of my videos. Just to do an intro as to who I am. My name is Cam, um, and what I'm here doing is trying to teach and show everyone who likes to fish or would like to learn how to fish simply to catch crappie. Okay? That is what my boat is rigged up for, strictly to catch crappie. That's all I do year round. Whenever I fish for crappie. Let me kind of back up a little bit. I want to share something with you guys, some things that you didn't know. I started off fishing for bass. Bass, 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 bass. As a matter of fact, I probably got about 6 or 7 bass rods that I haven't even used in probably 3 or 4 years. Brand new tackle box full of bass stuff. There's nothing wrong with fishing for bass. Um, they're very, very nice, gamey fish to fish for. They're bred for sport. They're extremely aggressive. But for me, and everybody's different, my whole thing was I wanted to make sure that I caught enough crappie to fill my freezer for whenever I want to eat fish. That was my whole thing. And let me tell you something a little bit about crappie that's different from all the other freshwater species of fish. Catfish, you can catch generally those all the time. Bass, you can generally catch those all the time. As I said in one of my previous videos, bluegill or shell crackers, what they call them, you can catch those generally year round. Okay, but there's something about fishing for crappie that it is a process. You've got to learn what they do, how they do it, what time of the year they do it, and all of the conditions, all those things have got to come together in order for you to catch crappie. Now, I will tell you, every now and again during spring, you have little kids to go out, and all you have to do is put a bobber on, put a little small jig about 24 inches beneath that bobber, and you can just run that across the water, and you will generally run into a school of crappie somewhere along the line. And once you run across that school, you can just keep throwing that rod back, that rod and reel back, for that jig right at that same spot, time and time and time and time and time and time again. And somewhere along the process, that's why I learned how to start catching crappie. I did that, and it was just schools of them. Sometimes if you run across a school of crappie, it's almost, and this is my term to put it, it's almost cheating, because you're catching those one after one after one after one, another after another after another. And before you know it, you got 30, 40, 50 crappie that are in the boat. And you heard me also mention on one of my tutorials that one female is responsible for 1 million eggs. So they multiply. And let me tell you guys this, crappie can take over a pond or a lake. Okay? And also one thing I want to mention to you guys that crappie, there's a misconception out there. Crappie is a predatory fish. It is a very, very mean fish. As a matter of fact, if any of you guys out there, I'm pretty sure if you fish for a minute, you've seen bait fish jumping out of the water, and you've seen fish chasing gizzard shad or minnows, and you see them jumping out of the water, and you automatically assume that those are bass, which is generally true. But in a lot of cases, those crappies, the big crappie, are mixed up in there too. They'll pin bait fish in a cove, and they will sit there and they will eat those bait fish. They'll pick them off one at a time, and they will keep them there. They're very, very mean, aggressive fish. A lot of people didn't know that. So, moving forward, today we have a little bit of time, and again, we're going to call this Tutorial Corner here at the Crappie Hole because I have the time to show you guys some of the little things that you need to know. And a lot of times, and a lot of you fishermen out there can rectify this with me, that when you are fishing or you've taken someone fishing that's new, you automatically assume that they know things. You've been doing it year after year after year, so you think that bringing somebody new that they will know exactly what to do. So my responsibility, and I feel that way sometimes as well, so my responsibility is to show you guys, and believe me, when I was in school, my whole thing was to learn. I learned by visual. I had to see what I was looking at in order for me to understand it. So that's why I brought some illustrations here so I can show you a few things. So, some of the things you may know, some of the things you may not know. One thing I want to cover is the process of post spawning. Because I'm so dialed in, guys, is already starting. I have about 6, 7, maybe 8 spots around this almost 200-acre lake that I catch crappie on. But for the last 2.5, 3 months, they've been holding where you guys have been seeing me fish off of that point. We call it Crappie Point, as a matter of fact. And for some reason or another, the last 48, 72 hours, they've been pushing off, okay? And I noticed something that is happening. In my front yard, I have lantana. I have a little garden that I generally grow, and my lantanas are starting to leave, okay? And another thing that I've noticed, you guys have seen in my videos where I get up early in the morning. I used to set my clock, sunrise said 6:53. 6:53. You guys have cell phones and it'll generally show you what time sunrise comes up. And it always said 6:53 was the sunrise. That's here southeastern here in Atlanta, Georgia. But now what is happening is it says 7:03. So let me explain this to you real quick, guys. Crappie and all fish will start to home in on things that are changing their environment, not only by water temperature, but also daylight time. They're going to start noticing that the days are starting to get shorter, which is what is happening right now. I've been catching a lot of brim lately on those same spots, mixed in with a few crappie. And that's telling me that the lake is starting to go through an evolution of a change now, okay? So that's why I'm here bringing you another tutorial, because we're getting ready. My job, guys, is to make sure that everything what you do is getting ready for the post-spawn of these crappie, okay? They're not going to tell you that we're getting ready to start biting. Crappie aren't going to do that. It's your job to home in on them and dial in on them and to make sure that you're there when they start biting. One thing I will tell you, as my grandmother used to tell me, one thing that is for certain is change, okay? And these crappie bite, which reminds me of another point all fishermen say. If you ever ask someone, you say, hey, how the fish doing? No, they ain't biting. Technically, that's code for I couldn't find them. And I'm gonna tell you why. Somewhere in this lake, somewhere in every body of water, the fish are biting. They've got to eat. It's your job to find them. And when you hear someone say, oh, they're not biting, that means they hadn't quite found them, okay? So, moving forward, what I want to do, guys, again, to make sure that you're ready for the post-spawn that's getting ready to happen, and it just doesn't happen October 1st. It doesn't happen the third week in September. It's a gradual change, and it is starting right now, okay? One thing I want to mention to you guys, and you've heard me cover hooks, which is specifically one of the most important things that you can have in catching those crappie and bringing them in the boat. And one thing I thought about is some people still don't know the correct type of hook to use, okay? And I want to show this to you guys. This right here is a small, regular, standard brim hook. We all grew up off of these, okay? I don't want to call it the name brand, but if you see it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, okay? I think you can get a good shot of that. Let me turn it this side so you can see it, okay? You see how short the shank is, the long part? You see how short it is? For catching crappie, this is no good. For brim, yeah, you can catch brim, shell crackers off of this, and even catfish, okay? That's a brim hook. This is what you're interested in. You see how long, I left the string on so I can show it to you guys. You see how long that shank is? You see how long it is? That ensures a good hook set, okay? Because crappie's mouths are somewhat, probably 3 times the size of a brim, even your biggest brim, okay? So you need that long shank in order to have a good hook set. And also you can see the gap between the hook itself, okay? The bend, you see how large that gap is? And you remember some of my earlier tutorials I was teaching you about the type of hook that you need in order to effectively bring crappie in. This right here, these types of hooks will definitely increase your catch ratio of bringing crappie into the boat, okay? I wanted to show you guys that. Another thing I want to cover, guys, is the type of line. Now, everybody has their own type of line that they like to use, and I'm fine, I'm okay with that. But I'm going to show you exactly what I use and you can kind of incorporate moving forward. You see this spool here? I purchased this spool online, Okay, this is high-vis string, 6-pound test line. I don't know if you guys can see the color of it. Okay, let me tell you about this. You remember here at Crappie Corner, we're all about, I'm sorry, at the Crappie Hole, we're all about cost effective. Okay, I purchased this entire roll of 6-pound high-vis line. Okay, this is monofilament, and I'm going to get to you guys about the type of string that it is that's a monofilament for $6, $6.99 or either $5.99. And let me tell you this, it has 2,040 yards on it. So I can probably do 30, 40 reels off of this one spool. Okay, it's strong. Some of you guys may have seen I caught a carp on this thing, 42 pounds, and I brought it in with this 6-pound test line. So my point is, I want you guys to get some high-vis line. The reason why I say high-vis is because sometimes when you're fishing, the pole itself may not even bend. All you'll see is the line running. Okay, that's why it's important. I used to use the clear stuff, but guys, once you go to high-vis line, you're not coming back anymore. Okay, this is very, 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 very important. And again, I purchased 2,000 yards, not feet, 2,000 yards for like $6, $7. Okay, remember, cost effective. Guys, ain't nothing special about me. I'm just the guy next door that like to catch fish. That's all it is. I'm not some kind of rocket scientist or anything like that. And I'm just dialed into these fish. That's strictly it. So I want to pass these things along to you guys to help you put more fish in the boat. Okay. Also, one thing I want to mention to you guys: sometimes when I go out and I'm fishing, I may use a bobber or a cork, depending on where you're located geographically. Sometimes those crappie don't want that bait fish sitting still. Okay, and a lot of times you see me spider rigging. Okay, that's when I go to, the majority of the time, 80% of the time, I'm spider rigging. Okay, I'm going through the zone, bringing that minnow. But if I find that they want that minnow sitting still, let's say if I take a second and I'm sitting right there in that strike zone, I'm sitting still, and I get hits, okay, I make a mental memo of that. That means that those crappie want that minnow sitting still. There ain't nothing more that I like, guys, and all y'all fishermen out there know this. There ain't nothing more that I like than seeing that bobber go underwater. And when these big crappie hit, when that bobber goes underneath that water, guys, it doesn't come back up no more. It's gone. And there are a couple of times when I've had to scramble for my pole to get it, and you guys can rectify with this as well. When the wind is kind of blowing and there's too much slack in your line, and you grab that reel and you start winding, but there's so much slack in there, but by the time you get to it, the fish is gone. But with crappie, the big ones, when they hit, they're gone. So by the time you get finished reeling that slack in, you still got the fish on. Okay? So in other words, there's nothing more that I enjoy seeing than that. I'm just like the next man. I love seeing that bobber go underwater. But spider rigging for me has found out to be the most effective. Now, what I want to cover, guys, I'm going to show you how I built my pole holder for my boat. It's plastic. Okay? And I have a Pelican. It's a 12-foot boat, maybe even 11 feet. But it's plastic. It's all plastic. So I didn't want to drill holes in my boat to put the rod holders on there. Okay, I wasn't interested in that. So what I did, guys, I built my own rod holder. Okay, I'm gonna kind of back up a little bit so you guys can see this. Okay, all I did was simply put PVC pipe here. I painted it, of course, and I got 2 boards that are running across, and these rod holders, you can buy these at your local tackle shop. I bought them offline for like $3 at Walmart. Okay, and I run 4. You may be able to run 5. It all depends on how long you want to run your rod holders. Okay, I put this in front of the boat because it's easier for me to grab. When I see it, you can see me in my videos, I'm hovering right above my rods. Okay, and they're very sturdy. I got them set in here, and this is my rig, and it probably cost me about $16 to make this whole assembly. Again, I didn't want to drill holes in a boat. If you choose to do that, also I have these are C-clamps too. They're screwed in. Okay, so I didn't have to make any holes into the boards themselves. I just tighten them down. And again, you can get these, man, for about $3, $4, $5, $6 online, depending on what make that you decide.